Let's have a conversation about happiness. Hello, all you beautiful souls out there in my social media family. How are you doing today? My name's Chris, and I'm here to help you find your happiness. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about today. And I just want to kind of have, more of a, just kind of a casual conversation with all of you out there and really discuss what happiness really is. Or at least, I'm going to give you my perspective of what I used to believe happiness was and what I have now come to learn that happiness really truly is. And man, I can't tell you how amazing it is to find happiness the way that I have found it now. And hopefully throughout this conversation, you'll be able to see how I've been able to accomplish that, and so that you can do the same thing for yourself. So with that said, let's talk about what I used to believe happiness was. And I think most of us kind of are brought up, or just through society, the conditioning or the programming, whatever you want to call it, where, I used to believe that happiness was external, and that it came from, having a relationship with somebody, whether it be a friendship or a lover, or I used to believe that it was having, an extreme amount of money and the big houses and the cars, the fancy cars and all of that stuff. And don't get me wrong, all of that stuff's good to have. But yet, at the time that I finally accomplished all of those things, growing up, I didn't really have much. And, but my mom did a phenomenal job. We always grew up in great neighborhoods. I can hardly think of ever really wanting something and not getting it. There's a few times, but I understood that because, it was just me, my mom, and my sister. And, she was a single mom raising two kids. And she did a phenomenal job with that. And yet, at the same time, as I got older, and I guess, like I said earlier, through the programming of society, my happiness went away from, just going out and surfing and skating like I did growing up, to now wanting the cars and the house and the business and all of that good stuff that we all strive to have. And I went through some struggles growing up, and and even after graduating high school, and I didn't go to college until much later, in life. I shouldn't say much later, until I was in my early 20s, right? And once I got out of college, that's when the drive really started for things, to accumulate things, to have the nice car, to have the nice house, and to have, the business and all of that. And through that, I got to a point where I was finally able to reach that pinnacle of what, or at least what I believed was the pinnacle at the point. And I right after college, I ended up getting some really good jobs, and progressing forward in the financial way, and progressing forward in the material things. And yeah, that brought me some happiness at the time. And yet there was still something missing inside me, and I couldn't figure out what it was. It was it was so weird, because there was always a need for more and more and more. And even though I had gotten, I'd reached each goal, but yet once I reached that goal, there was still a lacking of something. And at the time, I couldn't figure it out. And so I just kept striving for more stuff. And it finally got to the point where I'm in my mid 30s, and that's where, when I first met, actually when I was 29 years old when I first met my ex-wife. And, we were together for about 13 years. So during that time frame, there was really, because the relationship was good, and, that was, I had the validation of that, because I always grew up feeling like I needed the validation of being in a relationship to be happy. And so when that happened, it was very easy for me to start to accumulate more things. And because I had that sense of happiness there. And so I strived to reach more and more and more. And I finally got to the point where I was co-owner of a business. It's a very, very successful business. We were a $3.7 million a year business. And that grew very fast. I was able to step in as the director of sales and marketing for the first year, and then I became a co-owner after the year because the person who owned the business felt that I did such a good job that he gave me 50% ownership of the business, and so that was amazing. It was truly an amazing time in my life because I went from literally like not having much to now to a point where I have so much more. And I was able to really accumulate the things that I wanted to in life. I got the fancy cars. I was able to get the big house. I was able to really just provide a lot for my family and provide a lot for not just my immediate family, but for my external family as well. And, so I remember at one point I'm sitting there and, we have this 4,000 square foot house or something like that. It was astronomical, right? And at that point there, we also had, I had the Mercedes, I had the BMW, I had the Toyota Sequoia, and I was able to pretty much buy whatever I wanted. I was pretty much able to go wherever I wanted and do all those things in life that I wanted to do. I mean, I could go snowboarding whenever I wanted. I can go on a vacation, but I mean, usually I was way too busy to go on vacation, so that was kind of a bummer. But at the same token, I remember sitting there having a party at my house, and we have a ton of people over, and I remember sitting there thinking to myself, like, everything that I had accumulated to that point, the house, the cars, the money, the business, it was all to make other people happy. And that, I think, is really when things started to kind of fall apart for me, because I realized at a certain point that I wasn't happy with the way things were starting to go at work, at home, and with my friendships. And when I started to reach out to people to let them know, like, hey, look, like, I feel like I'm being taken advantage of, and I'm trying to figure out when it's my turn to really start to get some reciprocation for all the things I've been doing. And when it wasn't reciprocated, that's when everything I realized that I wasn't happy. And that was a really big struggle for me, because at that point there, it was really now a matter of like, okay, now what do I do? And it was a really, really, really crappy feeling, because I was making a ton of money. I had a beautiful wife. I had 3 beautiful children. And on the surface, it was seemingly like, what could be wrong? Like, I had everything that I had ever strived for. But internally, because I had lost focus of myself and was purely focused on external situations and external relationships in order for my happiness, once those things weren't being, I guess in my mind, reciprocated the same way that I was giving, that really, really started to get to me. It started eating away at me, to where, things at work started to fall apart within my business. My business partner started embezzling money, and then that led to things happening at home between my family and I, and like my mom and my dad, and then eventually my wife, which is now my ex-wife. So you can see how all those things kind of crumbled down. And what ended up happening was that this downward spiral, because I was so reliant on external factors for my happiness, that downward spiral just kept getting greater and greater and greater. And just like a funnel, right? And you see you're like a whirlpool, right? What happens when it gets towards the bottom, close to the center? It just starts spinning faster and faster and faster. And that's pretty much what happened. Is like, when I first started, I was starting to spin, and then as it started, time progressed, I just started spinning faster and faster, out of control. And that led to some really, really, really dark times in my life. And I'm not going to get into it. I mean, if you know my story, some of you have heard of what's going on, but it basically, in a nutshell, it got to the point where I lost everything within a 2-year period. Lost my business, lost my home, lost my marriage, and then, it's further to the point where, I was broken. And I was broken because the only thing that I was relying on my happiness for was from other people or external situations. And I remember sitting there one time, I was all by myself, and I was, laying in bed, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, why am I allowing all of these things to get me so far down that I can't break free from it? And that is when I had this epiphany, like, well, how can I expect anybody else to love me if I don't love myself? How can I expect anybody else to respect me if I don't respect myself? And most of all, how can I expect anybody to accept me for who I am if I wasn't accepting myself for who I am? And so that really led to an understanding that, and it's so weird to say it even now, that everything that I used to believe was somebody else's fault was actually mine. And I want to be very clear on this, okay? I want to be very, very, very clear on this. That does not mean that what other people did to me was okay. Like, I'm not excusing their behavior by any means whatsoever. What I am saying is that it was my fault because I allowed it to happen to me over and over and over and over again without there being greater repercussions for people's actions towards me. And so therefore, when you think about it in that sense, why would they stop? Like, if they know that I'm going to be there. That was interesting. If they knew that I was going to be there the next day, and they knew that, you know, I was the type of person that would just let things slide, why would they stop? There was no reason for them to. And again, it's not making, it's not making an excuse for what they did, but what it's saying is that what I am saying is that I want you to understand that no one can hurt you without your permission. Nothing bad ever lasts unless we allow it to. And those are things that I've come to understand through my whole healing journey. I've stopped trying to be in another relationship after relationship, because that's what I used to do. I used to jump from relationship to relationship. And I've really given myself the time to heal and to truly understand who I am. And in doing so, in pulling back my energy towards just for me and not giving my energy out to other people, or not trying to attract other people in my life while I'm still hurting, because I was hurting inside, and that's what caused, after I got divorced, I didn't give myself enough time to heal before getting into another relationship. So now that I understand the law of attraction, what was I attracting? I was attracting somebody else who was just as equally as hurt inside as I was. And then again, I got into another relationship, after that one, and still hadn't healed from that relationship or even my marriage. And of course, what happened? I attracted somebody who was even more hurt, okay, just like I was. And so now that like I started saying earlier, I've pulled back my energy and started just focusing on myself from within. And I've started to look at all of those situations, like what caused my marriage to fall apart? Like, what caused me to attract these other people in my life that just kept hurting me more and more and more? And what I realized, like I was just saying earlier, is that it was me. It was because I needed to fix things within myself versus trying to get a fix from somebody else, versus trying to get and what do I mean by that? It's not trying to say like go get a fix on drugs, and I did that too, which was stupid, because that just masks the pain. And I really want to take a moment to tell you that if you're hurt to the point where you're masking that pain with drugs or alcohol or sex or food or whatever, I'm sure you could tell by how emotional I'm getting about this. Like, I feel you on that. Like, I've been there. And what I'm here, and hopefully you get from this video, is that wherever you are in your life right now, there is a way out. There is a way out. You just have to understand that that way out isn't externally. It's this way. It's going in here. And man, the moment that I realized that, it was like, there was such a sense of relief and of peace that I had never felt before. It was this inner peace that has led me to feeling like myself again, like feeling like that little kid that I used to be before all of this trauma, before all of this pain, before, before somehow, somewhere along the line, falling out of love for myself. I mean, and through realizing that everything that happened in my life was because I had forgotten how to love myself. I had forgotten how to respect myself. I had forgotten how to accept myself for who I am. And through realizing that I had to go inside, that's where all of these aha moments started to come in. I literally, the first 3 months was epiphany after epiphany after epiphany after epiphany after epiphany. And each one, it was just oh my God, oh my God. And the first one, so the first epiphany that I had was realizing, again, like I told you earlier, is that the answers to my happiness were right in here. And that's what I want you to really, hopefully, understand that. Stop looking externally for answers to your happiness. Stop relying on other people or other situations for your happiness. Because when you think about it, no one else is responsible other than yourself for that. And the more that you put that responsibility in somebody else's hands, the more that you're setting yourself up for failure in that happiness, or at least for that happiness to be taken away. And if you think about it, once you start to find that happiness within yourself, everything else that happens on top of it is just a bonus. And if something that you are finding additional happiness in goes away, it doesn't affect you because you're not relying on that for your happiness. And that's so the first step is realizing that. The second step is forgiveness, and understanding that forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for ourselves. And by forgiving somebody else, again, you're not excusing their behavior that hurt you, but what you are doing is what you're saying to yourself and to that other person: you no longer have control over my emotions and over my emotional state of being, over my mental state of being, and you're taking back that power. And let me tell you, the sooner that you can forgive those people that hurt you the most, the sooner that you'll be able to release that space in your heart and allow more good things to come in. And this is something that I read in an article of Psychology Today, is that the doctor was saying that the more hate and resentment and fear and doubt that we're holding on to, that's taking up precious real estate in your heart. And there's no way for good things to come in if there's no room for it. So by forgiving those people that hurt you the most, you're starting to release those emotional ties, and that space starts to open up in your heart to be able to allow more things like that to come in. And so I really want you to work on those two things. Work on realizing that, externally is not where happiness comes from. It comes from within. That's the only place it can truly come from, to where it won't fade away as time goes on. And the second, start to forgive those people who hurt you, because I'm telling you, the release that will give you, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. I don't know if you guys can see those from here, but the release that will give you emotionally it's priceless. I mean, when I did it, it was absolutely priceless. So please, whatever you do, take these things that I've said into account and start implementing them into your life so that you can find your happiness. All right, everybody, I hope that you enjoyed this video. please, please, please share this video with somebody who you think might benefit from it, because we never know when the right words from the right person will hit somebody at the right time and help them find their happiness. Until next time, please, if you haven't already, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Also, smash that thumbs up button as well. And other than that, I'm sending you all much love. I love you all. Namaste.